Do you want to perform massive shatter combos, stop your enemies in their tracks, or rewind time after any of your mistakes? Then maybe you want to play the Frost Chronomancer build for Path of Exile 2. This sorceress build uses ice spells to freeze enemies and terrain to allow you to use Cold Snap liberally, which finishes enemies off, and they become ice crystals on death, which feels very satisfying. It is extremely complex when you consider that the average ARPG build is just pressing one button, but if you're like me and want a few more buttons to press, this one is a lot of fun. So if that interests you, I'll be sharing the build including the skill gems, combos, the passive skill tree, and the stats you want to look for on your items. So let's start with the skill gems. Frostbolt is the first spell you're going to get, and you can use this build from level 1. It just gets increasingly more elaborate as time goes on, but this is a really fun build at all points in time. So first you're going to get Frostbolt, and without any of these skill gems here, we're going to just shoot one Frostbolt out, and it leaves down a layer of ice on the ground. And it's really great for freezing enemies and giving them that buildup of cold. So we've got Glaciation there as well for more freeze, and Arcane Tempo to make it a little bit faster because we can summon multiple of these for even more freeze. But we've also got Scattershot in here so that we can shoot out 3 at one time, which gives us more area. And because of this, we can kind of just throw out all of these around us and freeze multiple enemies that are attacking us from all sides. And then what we want to do is, once they're frozen, we want to use Cold Snap. Cold Snap will shatter enemies who are frozen, and it can also shatter the frost bolts. So if we don't have Unleash here in our Cold Snap, then it will shatter one of them at a time. We want to have Unleash so that, you can shatter 3 of them by casting 3 times and it's very fast, but we've got the Unleash there to do a triple shatter there. And also Cold Snap is an AoE, so if there are 3 frozen enemies on top of each other, then all of them are going to shatter on each other, creating a huge burst combo. So Cold Snap is where your main damage is, and you can shatter these frost bolts or frozen enemies. So there's a lot of versatility in how you can get that damage depending on the situation. Now we've also got Considered Casting, which increases the cast time of Cold Snap, but since Cold Snap is already so fast, you can see I'm using it here, but I have nothing to shatter, so it's just draining my mana. But it's so fast that this increased cast time is not going to see much of a difference here. And you're just going to get 40% more damage, so very little trade-off there. And then we've got Cold Mastery, which is going to increase the base damage of the Cold Snap, so it's going to scale better with all the other passive stuff that we're giving it. Then we got Frost Bomb. So the basic combo is using Frostbolt into Cold Snap, but Frost Bomb leaves down a area that eventually explodes, but it also gives a exposure to cold damage to enemies that are in the initial pulsing AoE. So that'll increase the damage of your combo. So what you want to do is you want to use Frostbolt and then Frost Bomb and then shatter it once they've got the cold exposure, and then the Frost Bomb will explode. And you've got a lot of time to do this because there's a delay between the Frostbolt reaching your enemy and you using Cold Snap. So it's just kind of free damage if you do the combo right. And we can even do 2 Frostbolts in the time that we want it to wait for the combo to go off. So we do 2 Frostbolts, Frost Bomb, and then double shatter. And you can do a lot of damage. Or you can just spam the Cold Snap because the Unleash doesn't give you a triple shatter. Now you can level this up to 4 in complexity of the combo with Frost Wall. This creates a Frost Wall, obviously. And I've got the Spell Echo, so this is a double Frost Wall. And that means it's harder for enemies to get through. But I've also got Concentrated Effect, which makes it do more damage and have less area of effect. And Icicles have less life. Why would I want less life on my ice crystals? That's easier for enemies to get through. Well, when these explode, they blow up and do a lot of damage. And some enemies are very large, and they instantly break the icicles. So just using the Frost Wall on top of them instantly explodes it and does a huge amount of burst damage. And because I've condensed it to take up less area and to do a lot more damage and to be easier to break through, this can be a lot of burst damage, especially on bosses. So Frostwall is great on bosses or bigger enemies, not just stopping smaller mobs. but we're also going to add it to our burst combo. So what we're going to do is the double frost bolt, and then the frost bomb, and then a frost wall, because we can shatter our own frost wall. If I use the shatter combo there, and then we break it, we can break those ice walls. And so if we trap an enemy behind the ice wall, and then we shatter the ice wall, we do a huge amount of damage. So we're going to do 2 frost bolts, the bomb, create an ice wall, and then shatter the frost bolts when they reach the wall. And that's going to look like this. So there, frost wall, and then shatter. And then the frost bomb is going to blow up the ice wall, and we're going to get a huge amount of burst damage from that. And then we've got the comet, which is just a huge AoE that does good amount of damage, but it takes a bit of time to cast. Now I've got X Ice, which increases the crit chance. It also increases the cooldown, but you don't want to be spamming comet anyways, so this is fine. And then we've got Spell Cascade, which is going to give you extra comets, so there's going to be 3 of them that summon, just to make it larger AoE to more easily shatter our walls here. And then we've also got Inevitable Critical, so we're just going for as much crit chance as possible. We've also got some decent crit chance stats in the build, but essentially if you've got enemies running at you, you don't have time to cast Frostbolt because they're going to just run through your Frostbolts, and it can be hard to land your shatter combo. So here's an alternate combo. You're going to start with the Frost Wall, and then Frost Bomb, and then we're going to Comet to blow up the wall. And that will still do a lot of damage because even though we're not using the Cold Snap, we're still getting the Comet, which has high base damage. It can crit, and we're shattering the Frost Wall, and there's a Frost Bomb in there as well. After that, we've got some utility. So those are the main combo skills. The rest is kind of optional, but we've got Ice Nova here too. I don't really use this ever, but we get a little bit more area of effect from Expanse, which increases the cooldown. I'm not spamming this anyways. And Frost Nexus, which will create chilled ground. So if I'm running away from an enemy, then I could maybe use this, but I have many other tools for that. And then Deep Freeze, which increases freeze duration. Once again, I don't really use that too much. We've got 2 options for our spirit usage. We can go for Blink, which takes up 60 spirit and allows us to use Clarity, which gives us more mana regeneration. We use up a lot of mana in this build. Or Blasphemy, which allows us to make a curse apply in an AoE around us. So we're going to use that with Hypothermia, which reduces cold resistance to nearby enemies. And that gives us a little bit more damage, but I feel like the Blink is better for mobility. It helps you to not get caught by enemies, and it helps you to land your combos because it gives you more time to do them. So essentially how Blink works is you use your dodge roll, and it will teleport you instead of dodging. Now that means that while this is on cooldown, you can see the cooldown at the top left. While this is on cooldown, you cannot dodge. There's no dodging anymore. There's only blinking. So that can be a problem if you don't like Blink. Because of that, then just don't use it. Use Blasphemy instead and put the Hypothermia in there and Magnified Effect. So we skipped over the Chronomancer trait line because this is where it's going to get a little bit more complicated. So Temporal Rift is the first skill that we get. So we're going to ascend to Chronomancer. And when you go into Chronomancer, you go to the left side to get Temporal Rift, and then you continue to get Time Freeze. These are really important because the Temporal Rift, what it will do is it will create images of yourself for about, 4 seconds? I believe it's 4 seconds. Every second it creates an after image, and then you can teleport to the last one that it was created, and it keeps creating them new. So I'm going to teleport to here, and it's going to refund all of my mana, health, and energy shield, and my positioning when I was at that location. So if you get hit and you lose a lot of health, then you can rewind time, and it's like you never got hit in the first place. Or if you don't want to get hit and you're in a Trial of Secamus or whatever, you can use it to dodge the attack so that you never lose that honor. And this is really important for something that we're going to be using later on, but we'll get into that. And yeah, I'm using Second Wind so that we have more usage of this. We can use it twice in a row, but we also increase the cooldown by doing that. And so I'm going to try to recover some of that recovery rate by using Ingenuity as well. So we can use it quite often, and it's going to give us a lot of mana and health recovery because of that. And then there's Time Freeze, which will freeze enemies in the radius around you. So you can see the radius here. That's it. It's very large. And they are stunned for 3 seconds. And during that time, you can just wail on them. And this is great for co-op because stunning an entire group of enemies allows your team to just do their build without having to worry about positioning. And if it's against a boss, you can do your full combo on them without worrying about the boss mechanics. You can save your ally who is, maybe they're in the bad positioning and a mechanic is about to go off. You can actually freeze the boss and then they can get to the save zone, and then the boss continues their animation after they are no longer stunned. So this is very powerful. It's not just a stun, because stuns take a little bit of time to do. This is just instant. And then I've got persistence on this, so instead of a 3 second duration, it's more like a 4 and a third second duration. And then wind wave and unbreakable, because this has a cast time to it. And if you get stunned while you're casting it, say you're getting swarmed by a bunch of mobs and you want to stun them all with your time stop, if they stun you, then the time stop doesn't go off and it has a long cooldown of 1 minute. So if you get interrupted during that, you're kind of screwed. So I go for unbreakable to prevent that by increasing the stun threshold. And if I do get stunned, then at least I don't get screwed over completely, and there's a wind wave that happens as well. So for the passive, I just went for energy shield at the start, and then I go left, get a little bit of crit here, go for the spell damage and into the frost damage. Then I went more into the frost by getting cold resistance penetration, damage to enemies that have ailments, which I'm going to do a lot of freeze. And then I'm going to go straight up, get more crit chance, and go straight to the cold damage. I want to get 1 to all level of cold spells, which is going to give more base damage, more cold damage, and you can go for Whispers of Doom if you're in a co-op situation, because you can apply an additional curse, and it doesn't matter if the activation is doubled because it's just happening in an AoE around you. And you can apply either your cold exposure, or you can apply this one debuff. I forget what the skill is called, but it increases the duration of all other effects, which would include your time stop, so you can get a longer stun on your time stop, or just the freeze effects that you do are longer. And so that's really nice in co-op, but I'm not really using this currently, but it's just one skill that I've used. So we go here, get some extra crit chance. So mana regeneration is really important. Once we get to this point, mana regeneration gets extremely important because we go for Eldritch Battery, which converts all energy shield to mana. And then we go over here and simultaneously get Mind Over Matter. You want these both at the same time, because Mind Over Matter essentially makes your health pool your mana pool. So you're no longer using your health pool as a resource anymore. Your mana is now your health pool. And that means that all the mana regen that you get essentially acts as an energy shield, which gives you a lot of defense and prevents you from getting one-shotted in a lot of situations, because even if it does remove all of your mana and then you don't have anything you can do, at least you can use a mana potion afterwards and you're not just one-shotted. Because that's really important in later tier maps, where if you get one-shotted, you're no longer in that map and you get punished hard, you lose experience. So after that, I went for a little bit more mana regeneration. I went for critical damage bonus and critical chance. I go for cast speed and more cold damage. Cast speed is really important on this build to do those combos. And then I am now like 73 or something, and I'm going over here for more elemental damage. And that's pretty much the passives that I'm going for. And as for the items, I don't have amazing items, to be honest. I just want to go for primarily frost and spell damage, because I want as much damage as possible to make my combos hit harder. I want cast speed, preferably, which you can get from amulets or rings. So I have a cast speed ring here with 24% increased attack speed. That's a tier 4, so you can get a little bit more than that. But cast speed is going to allow you to do those combos more cleanly, and that's why it's really important. Then you just want mana and mana regen, so I've gone for that in a lot of places. Now, secondary stats that you can go for include critical chance. So we've got some crit chance here, but we've got most of our crit chance from the passive trait lines. And then you want energy shield, because energy shield essentially equates to mana. And then we want resistances. So my resistance is Not amazing right now, but it's decent enough. I've got cold maxed, I've got fire almost maxed, and then lightning and chaos damage are kind of dangerous. So that's why I've gone for the topaz charm here, because I have a weakness in lightning. So generally, while you're out in the maps, you're spamming your frost bolt and then reacting to what kind of enemies are coming at you. If a melee enemy is running at you really fast, then you're going to put down the ice wall, and as soon as the frost bolts reach them, you're going to shatter. And if it's a ranged enemy, you'll probably wait till the frost bolts get to them. You'll put down a frost bomb, and then you'll shatter them. If there's a ton of swarming enemies, then you want to get out a little bit more frost bolts before you go for the combo, because you want to freeze them to make the situation more manageable. More freezes are also going to equal more damage, because you can do big cold snap shatters. So do more frost bolts when there's more enemies, or get down those ice walls to block them off from their approach. And time warp is also really good. The time stop, which can allow you to do some really cool plays where, say there's a choke point and you can't get through it because there's a bunch of grenade throwing enemies and the grenades are just blowing up non-stop. You can't get through it or you'll die. So what you can do is you can blink through, time stop, do your combo, and then you can return back with your traversal. And there's just a lot of cool things you can do where you blink in, you blink out because of the rewind. And even if you make a mistake, you can just rewind, get your mana back, and then blink out of dangerous positioning, because not always does the rewind put you in good spots, because say you were in a really bad spot for a good couple seconds, you can still rewind and not be in really terrible positioning. But that's generally how the build works. If you do like this content or you found it helpful in any ways, please like the video. If you end up playing this build yourself, let me know in the comments how it works out for you. And subscribe, because I'll be making more fun and effective builds for Path of Exile 2. And with that being said, I will see you all next time.